Hey guys, welcome back to the Unlocked podcast. Today we are unlocking calorie restriction and diet breaks and how to use that to help you reach your goals, as well as if you really need to be counting calories, and some tips to help you along the way as you are embarking on this journey to transform your life, your health, your fitness. For the longest time, I believed that calories didn't matter, that it was all a myth, and I believed these stories that I was told from all of these people that a calorie is not a calorie. But at the end of the day, after doing some of my own personal research for myself and unlocking actual fat loss for myself, I have found some interesting facts that helped me make the decision for myself to pay attention to the calories that I am consuming. Now, you're going to see gurus all over the internet talking about macronutrients, this diet, that diet. There's the keto diet, there's the paleo diet, there's the Whole30 diet. There is carnivore, there's vegan, which is a lifestyle, but also some people utilize it as a diet. There's a ton of diets out there, and more diets keep coming up as time goes on. But here is the thing. All of these diets work for a specific reason. And that is they have some sort of restriction that causes you to be in a negative energy balance, which means causes you to eat less calories than what you are burning, whether or not you are tracking those calories or not. So as example, the ketogenic diet, which is a low-carb, high-fat diet, typically causes weight loss because the person eating this high-fat diet is eating less. Now, when you eliminate an entire macronutrient group like carbohydrates, clearly you're going to be trading the bread for lettuce, as example, or something like that. And so this causes you to eat less calories. If you don't pay attention to the calories, and if you think that the foods that you're eating, as long as you're eating keto foods, you're just going to lose weight magically, the reality is you can overeat on the keto diet, and people do it every day. And that's part of the problem that I had with the keto lifestyle, is that eventually I started craving more and more food, and I started being hungrier and hungrier, and I started eating more and more. And this led me to a cycle with dieting where I felt like I needed keto to lose weight, but I kept wanting to go off track because my body was craving the carbohydrates because of that restriction. Now, because I wasn't paying attention to my calories, it was more so if I'm hungry, I'm eating, and if it's keto, it's good, and I can eat as much cream cheese as I want, then that led me to a path where it felt like I was on a restrictive diet, but I was overeating, but at the same time I was feeling deprived. So for me, keto didn't work, but for you, if keto is something that works for you, if that feels the least restrictive to you and helps you stay on track to eating less, then that might be a good path for you. Because here's the thing, every single diet works, but you need to find the diet plan that feels the least restrictive to you, and you don't necessarily even need to be on a diet. I let go of all the diets, and I just focused on the main reason why all of these diets work, and that is the negative energy balance. And so what I decided to do was create freedom in my lifestyle so that I don't have to worry about what macros are what, eliminating any sort of thing out of my life, and I can eat whatever I want so I don't have that deprivation. But to lose body fat, we need to be in a negative energy balance, which means your body needs to be burning more calories than you are eating. And so different foods are going to have a different thermogenic effect on the body. So if you consume protein, it takes your body more calories to burn protein than it does if you're consuming carbohydrates. However, every macronutrient has its place within your body, and all of them affect hormones in different ways. And at the end of the day, if you think about what is the most important thing, then that will lead you down a path to be able to unlock weight loss without feeling like you're on a diet or without feeling restricted. And you can do it in a way where you don't feel like you're eating diet foods all the time. But at the end of the day, there is some form of restriction that will be necessary or needed to reach your weight loss goals. So the very first step is picking the actual lifestyle path or diet that will be right for you. Okay, when you find something that you like, the other important thing is asking yourself if you can do this for a very long time. If you would do this after you reach your goal, if you would continue maintaining this lifestyle beyond just to lose the weight, okay? If the answer is no, then most likely you might be setting yourself up to gain the weight back. And our goal is to not gain any weight back. Our goal is to reach our goal and stay at our goal, right? It all depends on what your goals are and how you can align yourself to reach those goals based on the foods that you're eating and allowing yourself specific freedom where you don't feel like you're on a diet. That will set you up for long-term success. With calorie restriction, you can do this in many different ways, right? You can eat multiple meals and snacks throughout the day and keep track of your calories, but keep in mind when you're doing this, if you are eating 3 meals a day and like 3 snacks a day, you are splitting those calories that you have like a budget. If you think of it like a budget, right? We all get a budget to go shopping, let's say. Every single day, our budget, we get a new budget. And you can use that budget however you want. And if you want to be spending that budget on little purchases all throughout the day, eventually you're going to get to the end of the day and you're going to feel like you spent all your money, but you don't know what you spent your money on. And you're not going to necessarily feel like you got the most out of that money. Now, you can also save that money, stack it up, and then spend it on larger splurges, like what I do. So instead of doing the multiple meals a day and the snacks, I latched on to time-restricted eating. This is another method to be able to control the amount of calories you're consuming, because when you do time-restricted eating, and the most popular time-restricted eating pattern or intermittent fasting pattern is the 16-8 pattern, which is you're fasted for 16 hours and you eat within an 8-hour eating window, and you split that 8-hour eating window into multiple meals, but you don't snack in between. That's how most people get started, and I did that for years. But as I developed the, knowledge and started challenging myself to longer and longer fasts, I ended up doing this crazy thing where I decided to commit to OMAD, 1 meal a day, for 30 straight days. And this actually created a habit within my life. And I broke free of a lot of the things that I think were holding me back for a very long time. And that is, I was eating at night before, and this nighttime meal was typically my largest meal, which was causing me to go to bed on a full stomach. And I was never actually really hungry at that time, but I was eating for social reasons, social pressures. So when I committed to OMAD, I actually let go of that because I was like, you know what? I'm having my biggest meal in the middle of the day. This is my most social meal. And I'm going to condense all of my calories into this window, which is between 1 hour to 4 hours. So I'm eating all my food within 1 hour to 4 hours. Typically, it's less than an hour because it doesn't take that long to eat my meal. Now, with this strategy, I don't actually have to count calories because it's very hard to overeat within one single meal for an entire day's worth of calories, but it is possible. And so if you're someone like me, you might want to track those calories. Now, that being said, you really can pick, if you're someone who's like, well, wait, I need to eat all the time. I want to be eating all day and not feel that restricted, then maybe something like a low carb, high fat lifestyle might be best for you. It depends on you and what feels the least restrictive to you. You'll be the most successful doing the thing that feels the least restrictive to you. Time restriction for me feels the least restrictive to me. But food restriction to me feels very restrictive to me. I would rather fast 23 hours a day and know I can eat whatever I want in my eating window, and it's going to still help me reach my health and body goals, because after I close my window and I fill my body up so I'm full, I then go towards the nighttime and then I'm going to go to bed, and then all that time I'm asleep is counting towards my fasted time. And then when I wake up, I don't want to eat anyway because it's like you've already been fasted for so long. It's not like you feel hungry, and hunger is a weird thing in that it comes and goes in waves and it doesn't last. And if you feel hungry, it might just be the hormones like leptin, your hunger hormone, triggering you to feel hungry because your body is used to the timing you typically feed it in. So time-restricted eating is another way to help you maintain calorie restriction. You don't have to do OMAD, 1 meal a day. To do this, you can do 2MAD, 2 meal a day, or you could do 3 meals if you're not snacking in between. But it's very important that you give your body long stretches of time where you're not consuming anything but water. Or for me, I also drink ketones in my fasted window. That helps me with the appetite control and the hunger control. So depending on what you're consuming in your fasted window, it's best for you to strategize this so that you're not constantly spiking your insulin, because the insulin is the fat storing hormone. It's also a nutrient storing hormone. We need insulin because if we're not producing insulin at all, then guess what? Your muscles need insulin to push protein into the muscle cells, just like your fat gets pushed by insulin into fat storage. So insulin is not necessarily a bad thing. If you're in a calorie deficit, at the end of the day, your body needs to get the energy from somewhere, and it's going to take the energy from your fat reserves, the storage, before it takes it from the muscle. It makes absolutely no sense for your body to store fat as stored energy for later and then to go and take it from your muscle, which is a much more difficult process for your body to access as energy. It would make no sense. So a lot of times people will be like, well, if you're in a fasted state and you do calorie restriction, aren't you going to lose muscle? As long as you're consuming adequate protein to maintain the muscle mass that you have while you're in the calorie restriction, your body has no reason to go into your healthy, lean muscle and take that muscle out. One of the biggest ways to maintain and build muscle is resistance training. And you don't even necessarily have to be going to the gym lifting weights to do resistance training. A lot of us do resistance training throughout our day, like lifting groceries and carrying our kids. Or lifting the laundry and taking it to the laundry, to the bedrooms, There's a lot of resistance training that we do naturally, which is maintaining our muscle mass. Now, you can add on top of that by doing additional resistance training to maintain your body mass. It's not recommended to focus on two goals at once. It's very difficult to focus on building muscle and fat loss at the exact same time, because this is a growth pathway and a loss pathway. And so what's more successful, you're like basically chasing two birds with one stone there. But what's more successful is that you go into periods of fat loss where you're focusing on losing the body fat, maintaining your muscle mass. And then you also have periods where maybe you're eating in excess, where you're focusing on the muscle gain if that's your goal. You don't necessarily have to, but if you've built a pretty good foundation of muscle and want to lose that excess body fat that's covering it, then going into a period of time when you are focused on losing the body fat, that's when you are not focusing on growth at the same time as loss. Okay, we're focusing just on the loss, and you want to maintain your muscle, but like I said, by making sure you're consuming enough protein and that you're also doing some form of exercise resistance training into your regular routine of that, okay? Not with the goal of gain, but with the goal of maintain of the muscle mass. Okay, so that being said, you have to consider something. So if you're in this stage, which I'm assuming this is where you are, where you're like, okay, I want to go into a fat loss stage and I want to lose the excess body fat. So what you're going to want to focus on is finding your calorie deficit range, which is different for all of us because we all have different metabolisms, metabolic rates. We have different levels of body mass, different activity levels in our day. We have different BMRs. We are all different, right? And there's different calculators you can do online. So there's a ton of different free calculators that will tell you where you should be with your calorie deficit. There's also different apps. There's the MyFitnessPal is an app. I use an app that I actually really like because it uses AI to actually help you based on your check-ins, telling you what your weight is for that week. It knows if you've been following the calories that have been recommended for you, and it will actually adjust them. Because over time, what's going to happen is as you're losing body fat, your metabolic rate will actually go down with that, and then the calories that you're consuming, your deficit is going to get shorter and smaller and smaller. So eventually you won't be in as much of a deficit, and so your weight loss progress will slow slow down. And so what I like about this app, and I'm not affiliated with them at all, I get literally nothing from telling you this, but that I know that it'll probably help you because this is what I use. I like that it will tell me where my calorie range should be for the week based on my goals. It will also let you do a setting for reverse dieting and all of these different things to help you based on where you are right now. So that being said, I know where my calories need to land for me to be in a deficit. And that for me is right around 1,300 calories. This has changed over time. It used to be 1,600 calories. This was when I was about 25 pounds heavier. And as I lost weight, that number went down. For me to be in a restriction, calorie restriction, I need to be right around, like, for body fat loss, 1,300 calories. Now, the other thing is that they have found is that when you exercise and when you do cardio and you burn extra calories, a lot of times what we'll do is we will take that total of calories that we burned in the gym and we will add it to our calorie budget and think that we have extra calories that we can eat in a day and still access the same amount of weight loss. But here is the thing. There is a double-edged sword with this, okay? If you are out there burning calories with fitness, that is different than just eating less calories within the day. So what happens is, and this happens a lot with women, and this may have happened to you at some point, you let me know in the comments below, you will go and burn 500 calories in the gym, and then all of a sudden that will be your excuse to eat an extra 500 calories or drink something for an extra 500 calories or treat yourself, right, to something additional because you did your workout. And so what happens is it ends up that most people eat more calories than what they actually burned in the gym, thinking that they were like eating equal or they're actually eating less than what they burned in the gym because those numbers on the treadmill is completely inaccurate. Okay, it's not correct. And also on those like fitness watches and things, those are not correct numbers. And we end up overeating on calories because of the workouts that we're doing. Now, it is extremely helpful for your health in general to do workouts. And like I mentioned before, the lifting weights, there's different workouts that I like to do, not for the extra calorie burn, because I just know through the research I've done that a lot of times that does backfire on people, but it will add an additional burn to my day that I don't calculate in. I just let it be like a bonus, okay? And I don't find myself getting hungrier when I do this, because that's the other thing that happens to a lot of people. They will feel more hungry if they are doing more of an energy expenditure, like running or doing something where they're exhausting calories from activity. And so then they will end up overeating to compensate for that. And your body is smart at balancing out. So if you start doing something on a consistent basis regularly, your body gets used to that and it wants to put you into a balance. So what will happen is your NEAT, which is like fidgeting and things that you do without realizing it, actually burns a lot of your calories during the day. And your body, to protect itself, will lower the amount of NEAT that it does so that you're naturally burning less calories just from living, to make up for these extra calories that you're burning for your run or in the gym, okay, on the elliptical and that sort of thing. So we don't want that to happen to us either. So the workout that I found that I feel is extremely helpful for benefiting weight loss is called a rebounder. And the rebounder is a mini trampoline. And the reason I like it is because it actually stimulates lymph flow and drainage, which is going to help you with your body releasing toxins. And it's also going to make every cell in your body stronger, because when you jump on a rebounder, it's actually causing your cells to work against G-forces. And that causes every cell in your body to get a workout at the same time, which is unlike any other workout. So when I started my weight loss journey, I decided to give up the high intensity training workouts. I decided to give up the cardio. And I decided to only focus on rebounding and then doing some lifting weights every once in a while so I maintain my muscle mass. And the rebounder, it's very difficult at first, but if you do like 2 minutes at a time, maybe a couple times a day, eventually you get stronger and you build up that stamina, and it becomes easier and it becomes a lot of fun and it's enjoyable, especially if you listen to music. And I don't follow any specific routine. I literally just jump. I just jump, and I do jumping jacks. I just do what I want to do while I'm on there, and that just makes it a lot of fun. If you're right now in a routine of working out every day, your body's used to that calorie burn, and it is a part of the calories that you are burning on your daily basis. And if you all of a sudden stop that workout, now your body has to get back to increasing your NEAT because you working out every day is the same calorie burn of you not working out every day if you were not in that habit and you never picked up that habit, because your body is used to that level of calories. And if you don't believe me, go read the book Burn by a PhD. I forget his name off the top of my head, but I will put it in the description below. That will basically share with you the studies and the research and how this works and how our body does this. So if you're someone who wants to reach your weight loss goals and you think exercise is going to get you to your weight loss goals, it is not. It is a piece of it. It is a piece of healthy living. And there is studies that show that exercise helps you maintain your results, and people who work out regularly are able to keep off the weight easier. But actually getting to your weight loss goals, taking the fitness side out of it, I think helps, because now you're not confusing things. Should I be eating more? Shouldn't I be eating more? All of this stuff. Okay, so let's focus on what we're eating and how much we're eating and putting ourselves in a calorie deficit so we allow the body, the calories we're burning to help us, right? To help us reach those goals in a healthy way. We don't need to sacrifice our health to lose weight, and we shouldn't, right? We shouldn't. And so doing this in a healthy way that you feel like, wow, I can do this forever and I feel so amazing and I don't feel restricted and I feel free is important. So whether or not you're doing time restricted eating or fasting or not, it doesn't really make a difference as long as the calories, the actual calories consumed in the day, is equated. But there is some studies that show that eating your calories earlier in the day versus later in the day might have some benefits. You have to feel your body out, but I would say it's worth a try, right? I do this. It's something called early time restricted eating. They say have breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, dinner like a pauper. What that means is your biggest meal is earlier in the day, and then you have a middle of the day, not so large meal, and then less of a large meal later in the day. Now, if you're doing something like what I'm doing with one meal a day, having your largest meal right in the middle of the day or earlier in the day is beneficial for body fat loss. Okay, but having it all at the end of the day is going to be very difficult on your microbiome and is taxing and causes your body to literally not be regenerating and doing the things that your body wants to do overnight while you're sleeping. It's going to be actively digesting that food for energy, which you don't need because you're sleeping. You want to be consuming the energy within a time of day and in the hours of time when you are actually in need of that energy, right? You're running around, you are doing things, you're thinking, you're active. That is the time you want to be consuming the energy. Calorie is a calorie, right? This is not necessarily, well, yes, a calorie is a calorie because it is a unit of energy. That is true. But what your body does with that calorie when you consume it is different based on where that calorie comes from. So your body's going to use a calorie of protein differently than a calorie of fat. We know this, right? And so this is where it goes back to feeling your body out. Now, if you feel hungry while you are in a calorie restricted state, that is typically a sign that you need to consume more protein, okay? And typically the rule of thumb for women for maintaining muscle mass is, and this is just through the guidelines, is 60 grams of protein. Now, for satiety reasons, it's suggested to eat around 100 grams of protein for women. This is not with the goal of growth. This is with the goal of maintaining muscle mass, but helping us with the goal of fat loss and keeping us full while we're fasting or while we're in the calorie restricted state, okay? So I notice if I'm consuming 60 grams of protein, that it's easier for me to get hungry while I am fasting before I get to that next meal. If I have 100 grams of protein within that meal, I rarely ever feel the urge or need or hunger after I have that meal, okay? So this is something you want to feel out for yourself. My target in the day is 100 grams of protein. Where do I usually end up? Right around 80 grams because I'm having that one meal, and I'm not going to force myself to eat more calories just to hit a specific macronutrient goal. And that's another thing that I think is really important for a lot of people, and this gets them into that scenario where they end up spinning their wheels because they're trying to hit a macronutrient goal, and so they end up consuming more to do that. Now, there are some things that are very high in protein but low in calories. One, and my most favorite of them all, is the sugar-free Oikonos, I think that's how you say the name, toasted coconut yogurt. It's so good. And I put a little bit of nuts on top of there, but there's like 11 grams of protein for a little 60 calories. That's a lot, okay? That's a lot. So you could actually add that on as like a dessert. You can have that as a snack if you're not doing fasting, if you are have a wider eating window, or even if you are fasting, but you just have that wider eating window, you could do that as a breakfast meal if you want. But that is good. And also yogurt's extremely beneficial for the gut microbiome. And you guys know how dedicated I am to the microbiome and how I think that is an extremely important piece to weight loss as well, healing your body and all of that. So this is the fat loss stage, okay? So we go into these moments of intense dedication where we're focusing on a deficit. If you want to do it with a diet, you can do it with a diet. If you don't want to do it with a diet, you don't have to, as long as you're just keeping track of your calories and you're prioritizing protein. Very simple, right? You get the amount of protein you need. The other stuff, it's not that big of a deal. You may find for yourself that if you eat higher sugar, you get hungrier. And this is something you feel out for yourself. This is all a part of like food flexibility, is recognizing these triggers for you. If you feel like you eat a donut and that donut is going to take up a large portion of your calories and leave you feeling hungry after, probably the next day you want to make different choices, something that you know makes you feel full and not hungry later on, but also gives your body the nutrition it needs while you have this budget of calories, okay? So we're all different and we're all going to experience that differently. Maybe the foods that I'm eating, if you ate that same meal, maybe you would feel hungry 2 hours later and it keeps me full. We're all different. And so I want you just to keep that into your mindset of at the end of the day, the very first most important thing is the calories that you're consuming. The second most important thing is hitting the protein goal, okay? Don't try to add more calories just to hit the protein goal, but try to be between 60 to 100 grams of protein. More protein than that is fine. Less protein than that, probably okay if it happens rarely, but I would say you kind of want to stay right there because you don't want to go calorie restriction and then also protein restriction. I've never heard of someone who is deficient in protein. And especially with fasting, let's just say this, okay? A lot of times people will say, well, if you're fasting, especially 23 hours a day and eating all your calories in one meal, isn't your body going to start breaking down your protein in your muscles? Okay. And here's the thing. Our body's in an extremely smart, genius machinery to keep us alive. And do you know that your skin and dead cells that your body doesn't need anymore is protein. And wouldn't it make sense, especially if you're in a state of autophagy and you've been fasting, wouldn't it make sense that your body is going to recycle and use that protein to then fuel your new cells that you, or what you need to thrive and like live your best, healthiest self? So that's why I'm personally not worried about muscle loss. I have tested myself, and throughout this entire weight loss experience of mine, I have not lost any muscle. And actually, I put on a little bit of muscle, which is interesting. So a lot of times we hear a ton of fear out there, and there's a lot of information that is spewed out at us. And you've got to have a filter and just think for yourself, okay, where did this information come from? Is this accurate? And have I ever experienced this happening in my life? Okay. I wouldn't be too worried about losing your muscle. If you're moving, if you're active, if you're lifting some sort of resistance within your day, your body's going to have a purpose and a reason to keep that muscle around. If you're laying in a bed all day and you're not moving, your body has no reason to have that muscle, right? You need to give your body a purpose for keeping that muscle, okay? So this is where resistance training can help. If you're doing that a couple times a week, you're giving your body a purpose. It's saying, okay, well, we lift heavy weights. I need the muscle. So I'm going to maintain the muscle, or I'm going to build it. If you are in a day where you ended up with like a surplus without realizing it, then your body might build muscle in that day. Remember, it's not like an on-off switch. Your body is doing different things constantly, a constant evolution and movement happening here. At some moments you're in a surplus, at some moments you're in a deficit. It's not so like in the moment when you're eating one big meal of 1,300 calories, all of a sudden all of these calories are coming in, and guess what is happening? It's going to store what it needs to store, and it's going to use what it needs to use. But then when you go a period of fasting, it's now going to tap into that storage and it's going to use it. And hopefully you are using more than you are putting into storage. And that's where the balance ends up leading to fat loss. Now, the next part of this topic is diet breaks. What is a diet break? A diet break is when you take a period of time where you eat at a maintenance level of calories and you're not focused on a deficit. And sometimes you can eat a little bit higher than maintenance level. And maybe you're kicking up your workouts during this time and you're focusing on building a little bit of muscle. That's optional and totally separate. But diet breaks can be helpful, especially if you've got a long journey ahead, to kind of give you that reset of motivation and to give you that, it's from what I know it can be very helpful for just the mental piece of this, because going in a deficit for a very long time, months on end, can feel exhausting. And so having that break where all of a sudden, okay, well, you're eating a little bit more, you're not worried about the deficit and you're not worried about losing weight, but more so just maintaining this current status, that is helpful. Or even gaining back a little bit of weight with the goal then to reset your metabolic rate to then go back into the deficit to now push you into your next level. So most people choose holidays, vacations, and times in their life when they know they don't want to be dieting. Those times in their life, that's when they're going to be putting their diet breaks, okay? I did this. I went on a diet break. It was a 3-week diet break because I had a vacation and I wanted to be able to eat what I want, drink what I want, not fast, not worry about it. But also I wanted to reset my metabolic rate because I felt like I was starting to maintain around 1,300 calorie mark. And so I needed to now shift my body and change my set point of my calories burned to raise it back up. So then when I go back into a deficit, I can start losing again, and then not only lose what I may have gained, but then lose more than that. Okay, so I had to understand I was actually sacrificing, all right, I'm going to step back a little bit, but then it's going to push me forward. And so I'm 2 weeks now back into a deficit, and now I feel really good and I feel really great about where I'm going. There are some things I think I wish I didn't do during my diet break, and that is wish I didn't introduce alcohol back into things, because I had gone months without alcohol, and it really did heal a lot within myself. And I think I was, by going on this vacation and drinking so much alcohol, I was not only eating more, but I was drinking a lot of calories that were unnecessary. So I think that just pushed me a little too far back. I did not gain that much back, but I'm still within like a 10-pound swing of this diet break, right? So like and I had to, and then once I stopped drinking alcohol, then I had to get the water weight out of my system, because you retain a lot of water, and then the inflammation and all of that. And there's a lot to do with that. So it's your choice if you even want to take a diet break. You don't have to take a diet break. Lots of people don't. And you will move quicker to your goals if you don't take a diet break. But there is a study that I found, it's on men, that does show that when you do periods of maintenance level calories plus periods of calorie restriction over the same amount of time of the calorie restriction, the people who implement the maintenance calories in there, they lose more body fat than the people who did not take a break. Okay, so there is something that it does there. So, but it will take longer to achieve the weight loss goal because you take that break. And so you're stopping the loss, and you're taking that period where you have no loss, and then you're coming back, and then you've got to lose anything additional you may have gained from that period if you went over the amount of your maintenance calories. And then it takes you back to where you were. So this is a personal choice, okay? I do not plan on having another diet break for a while. And when I do my next diet break, and as in a while, I'm talking like 3 to 4 months from now. And when I do take my next diet break, that diet break is going to be without alcohol. Okay, I've actually made a commitment to myself to go a year without alcohol, and I am right now 2 weeks into that goal. And that's because I don't want it to be a question for me, because a lot of times if we're like, should I drink, shouldn't I drink, that voice inside, that's that little rebel, might always, come in there and win the battle and say, okay, 1 glass of wine. And then before you know it, it's all out the window. So for my body goals, from this point forward, I want to lose 20 more pounds, and then that's when I'm going to hit my maintenance level. And at maintenance, there's something called a reverse diet. And what a reverse diet is that's when you start slowly adding calories back, so you slowly over time lift your metabolic rate, okay, to get to the point where it's comfortable for you. Now, I actually do feel pretty comfortable on 1,300 calories if I am eating one meal. If I want to split this into 2 meals and start doing 2 MAD, which is, I think, the better long-term solution for maintaining, would be 2 main meals and then doing like a nice big breakfast and then like a medium-sized meal for lunch. Then as long as the calories are the same within there and I'm slowly increasing that, eventually I should be able to consume more calories within those 2 meals and maintain where I land. And also at that time, I'm going to plan on adding in more resistance training so that my body is in a building growth state, but not growth as in fat, but growth as in muscle. Okay. So that's my strategy, but we are all different, like I said. And you're going to want to figure this out how you want to figure it out. But on the topics of calorie restriction, diet breaks, and reverse dieting. I know I'm not going to go deep into reverse dieting because I'm actually not really an expert on reverse dieting, and I've never done it myself. When I do it myself, I will start sharing more about that with you guys, because I will have a greater understanding of how it works and how it's implemented. But because I just did the calorie restriction and I'm going back into calorie restriction and I've got that food freedom and I don't feel restricted because I allow myself to be able to eat whatever I want. But let me tell you guys about a story of one of my very good friends, Natasha. She just lost 120 pounds. Amazing, okay? And I'm going to share with you guys exactly what she does to do that. And now here is the thing. This girl okay, she's 35 years old. She's always put everybody else in front of herself. She is such an amazing mother, such an amazing wife, and just cares about everybody else's needs way before her own. She puts herself at the bottom of the list. Last year, she hit her breaking point in that she realized if she keeps going down the path she was going down, she might not be there to see her children grow up. She loves them so much that ended up becoming her why, and what led her to focus on making some changes and sticking to those changes. Now, what Natasha does is she has her day strategized in a specific way so that she's in a calorie deficit, and she works on using higher protein, but she allows the freedom, food flexibility freedom, so that she can also like have a meal where she can eat more fun foods that help her not feel like she's on a diet. So I'll give you the example of Natasha's exact day, okay? She starts with a protein shake, and then she adds that higher protein yogurt to that shake, and she ends up bumping her protein meal in that shake up to 40 grams of protein, and that's what she has as her very first meal. Then she has a higher carb lunch. So she didn't have carbs in her breakfast, but now she has carbs in her lunch, and she allows herself to eat what she feels like eating within that lunch. And then for dinner, she either makes that shake again, or she does a low carb dinner. So she's consuming her carbs in the middle of the day, and technically she's kind of doing OMAD a lot of the days, but with like a liquid meal for breakfast and for dinner. And she's making sure she's getting that protein so that she stays full in between. And she's also using tools to help her with the appetite control and the hunger control, the exact same system that I follow with the ketones. And so she's implementing all of this together, and it is creating literally a scenario where she's in a calorie deficit. And she also doesn't drink alcohol anymore. So she cut out the alcohol because that was also keeping her from staying on track to her nutrition goals. But she's not super strict on counting the calories. She's more so focused on the protein aspect, making sure she's getting enough protein in there. And she has 2 meals that she has completely controlled within her day and within her routine on a regular basis. And so by using her ketones every day, which is helping her, then she doesn't have to follow the keto diet, but then she gets the benefits of the mood, the appetite control, and all of that. And then she's using the meals that she eats, and she's not snacking in between. She's also not mindlessly snacking, and she also no longer consumes sugar like desserts and candies and all of that stuff. So she cut that out of it as well. I mean, which is a lot of times that type of food is easy to overeat on and doesn't provide any nutritional benefit to us. So this doesn't mean she will never have a cake again. It just means she will, but rarely, not daily. And the same goes for like wine, right? It doesn't mean she won't have a glass of wine ever again. It just means not every day, okay? Like not in her daily day-to-day routine. So I'm extremely proud of her. She literally just posted her before and after and her results, and she's sharing about it. And so I wanted to shout her out here in this episode and just give you guys, you know, some idea of how it's different from based on where you are and where you stand. Someone who is 10 pounds away from their goal or 20 pounds away from their goal is going to be implementing a different strategy than someone who is 100 pounds away from a goal or 150 pounds away from a goal. And if you've been obese your entire life and you're in a scenario where it's feels very, very difficult to make small changes, maybe following like Natasha's strategy might work well for you versus my strategy, which might work well for you eventually, right? Someone like Natasha is probably not going to be going 23 hours a day fasted and eating all of her food within 1 hour. That takes time to build up to that level, right? Starting with like 2 meals a day and starting with like fasting. She does fast, but she doesn't fast like she will fast 16 hours, right? But she's not fasting like 20 hours, and that's okay. And that's what I mean by us all being different. For me, it's easier for me to just have one meal where I don't have to worry about it, stress about it, and I can eat whatever I want. and to just do the fasting and use these tools like this. This is a carbonated one of the ketones. And if you don't use the ketones, that's your choice as well. I'm not saying you have to, but it's a tool. It's a tool that helps, right? Other things I consume in my fasted window is like coffee, black coffee, and water. And club soda and lime. So that's a little bit about that. And I talk about my strategy with OMAD in the episode all on OMAD. I think that was episode 2 of the Unlocked podcast. So you're going to want to go and check that out. If you're like, all right, this 1 meal a day thing sounds amazing because I want to be able to eat what I want in one meal without feeling restricted or deprived or like you're counting, then maybe OMAD would actually be a very good strategy for you. So you're going to want to check that one out after this one. And so I will see you guys in the next Unlock podcast. I would love to hear your questions below or what you thought about this one. And how you would like me to expand upon it too, if you think that there's something that was unclear for you.